Okay, so today I want to share with you some infrastructure as code. So whenever I do a demonstration video, whenever I do any testing around VMware SASE products, I like to spin up a clean environment using one of the cloud service providers. So in this example, I'm going to show you doing this with AWS. So this repository is hosted in VMware code. We'll have links in the notes so you can navigate to this quickly. And you can download all the files that we're about to walk through. So one thing I will show you is if you go to browse code, the README has really important instructions for setting this up, but this is a little bit of raw markdown, so it's easier to go to the GitHub page where this is hosted at and look at it rendered there. So if we scroll down, we'll just kind of quickly go over the topology and gloss over some of the instructions. So the topology, what we're going to build, a Windows server that's going to essentially be our client. It's going to connect its interface to a host subnet, which is basically the LAN side of the SD-WAN edge. And then the SD-WAN edge has a public side that connects to the internet so that it can create an overlay network to the SD-WAN gateway, and then the SD-WAN gateway can take the traffic to Cloud Web Security and ultimately to a SaaS application or web application for your testing purposes. So just make sure you read this. There are some files that you're going to have to bootstrap, namely the Terraform TFVARS file. This is going to be your AWS access key, your secret key, the orchestrator address, the URL, username, password, so you can make the API calls from Terraform to be able to create the edge and activate it, and then also associate it to an edge profile. The other file that you're going to have to bootstrap is the VMware SASE root certificate. So this is more of a convenience item than anything. So you can get the certificate from Cloud Web Security. You can copy and paste it into this file following these instructions. And what it's going to do is, as it goes out and builds that Windows server in AWS, it's just going to copy that root certificate into the trusted root store. So when SSL interception happens, you don't get that warning page from any of those browsers saying, hey, something looks a little off. The certificate is being signed by an authority that we don't know of. So this will help you with that as well. So going over to the network overview page. Here you can see I have an orchestrator with no edges, no devices. You can also take a look under configure and you can see my profiles here. So I have the secure edge profile, and this is what the edge is going to be attached to when it comes up. So a couple of quick notes. One, I have a rule that says to Cloud Web Security. This is web standard ports, and it's associated with a Cloud Web Security policy called corporate policy. Another thing you may notice is number 6 here. I modified the remote desktop rule to basically say anything from the LAN side interface that's sourced from 3389, because if you think about when you RDP to that server, it's going to be sourced from 3389 because that's the server port. So I want this to go direct to internet. And the reason for that is there's going to be some port forwarding we're going to do so we can cleanly nest the Windows server behind the LAN side interface of the SD-WAN edge, so we can make sure all traffic flows through the SD-WAN edge, goes to Cloud Web Security, and you can test everything that you need to test, and there's really no surprises with the traffic flow. The other thing to mention is in the profile that I use, I do have the block quick rule in here, just so if I'm testing anything with like Google Drive, that it's reverting back to TLS and my SSL inspection policies are being applied correctly. So we'll go back to the monitor page and we'll pop over to my console to just kind of take a look at the repository. So I have everything downloaded here, cloned down, so I can go ahead and just run a Terraform Apply. I would recommend, if this is your first time doing this, to do a Terraform plan first. That way you can understand all the components that are going to be put into AWS, and you can kind of read through it and get a good feel for it. So we're going to create 22 objects in AWS and in the orchestrator. And what this is going to do is it's going to spin up your SD-WAN edge, that Windows client I was talking about, and it's going to do all the plumbing in AWS to make sure traffic flows in the correct direction. So while that's coming up, we can go back to the orchestrator and we can take a quick look here and we can see that the SASE branch lab, US West 1B, never activated. It's going to be coming up here shortly. So now that our code is finished running, we can take a look here and we see 2 public IP addresses that have been returned to us. So what's important to note from this is when you do get to the part of the instructions in the README that talks about modifying the Windows Server IP configuration to point the gateway to the edge, this is what you're going to use to RDP to that device initially and to make that modification. And then after you make the modification and do the port forwarding rule that's discussed in the README, you'll use this IP address to RDP to that Windows server. So just coming back to network overview, we don't have anything yet, so that's going to take a little bit of time to come up. So we'll just kind of pause here, give this an opportunity to run maybe a couple minutes, and then we'll check back on the edge. Okay, coming back to the orchestrator, we now see that the edge has shown up. It's showing up in a degraded state. And the reason for that is it phoned home and it said, hey, you know what? I'm running this version of code, 4.3.1, which I think is currently set in the Terraform. And it says this orchestrator is actually on 5.0. And I have a specific image that I need to be running. So as it's coming up, it's going to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and grab that image, download it, and upgrade myself. And eventually this status is going to go green. And once that's green, you know you're good to go to start your testing. While you're waiting for this to come up, you can be a little bit efficient here. So make the configuration change that you need to do the port forwarding that I mentioned. So we can come here to configure edges, firewall, additional settings, inbound ACL, and we'll just add a quick rule here that says RDP, and we'll specify protocol TCP. And sorry for that, the window's a little tight, but we'll show TCP there. Interface, it's going to be the WAN side interface, so gig 3 is what it is, and that's specified by the Terraform. And then we're going to put the IP address of the Windows host. So this IP schema is actually predictable. If you dig into the Terraform a bit, you'll see how that's constructed. And we're only running a global segment. So here we can see that protocol TCP on the WAN interface destined to 3389, the RDP port. We want to send this to the LAN 1064.0200 to also port 3389 on the global segment. So we save this, and this configuration will also be applied once this edge is up and operational. And there you have it. Your edge is up, operational, and ready for you to start testing. So once you finish that Windows configuration, you're good to go, and you'll be able to test all feature and functionality in Cloud Web Security or SD-WAN or anything else that we connect to with our product. So now let's say you are finished with all your testing, you're ready to tear this environment down. All you need to do is just come here to Diagnostics from the orchestrator and go to Remote Actions, and we're just going to select this branch and shut it down. So the reason we're shutting it down, so this is going to appear in a disconnected state, and that's going to give us the ability to run the Terraform Destroy and pull this out of the orchestrator. So it's kind of a clean way to go about cleaning up this environment. So the shutdown command is going to take a minute or two for that to process. You're just going to want to stay here on the monitor page and just refresh occasionally. You'll see a transition from a connected to a degraded to a down state. Once it's down, we can pop back over to our console and hit the Terraform Destroy. Okay, and there it is. It's finally showing down. So we pop over to the console and we just type out Terraform Destroy. And when prompted, we'll go ahead and hit yes to remove those 22 objects we created. It's going to go out to AWS. It's going to go out to the orchestrator, pull everything out that we've deployed in those 2 locations, and now you're back to a clean state. So we'll go back to the orchestrator real quick and we'll just refresh, and we'll see that the edge is gone. We'll look in our edge inventory and it's all been cleared out. So I hope you found this video informational and you found some new ways to conduct your own VMware SASE testing. Thank you.